The Heroes of Olympus, Book 4, The House of Hades, by Rick Riordan. Chapter 69, Annabeth. Getting killed by Tartarus didn't seem like much of an honor. As Annabeth stared up at his dark, whirlpool face, she decided she'd rather die in some less memorable way, maybe falling down the stairs, or going peacefully in her sleep at age 80, after a nice, quiet life with Percy. Yes, that sounded good. It wasn't the first time Annabeth had faced an enemy she couldn't defeat by force. Normally, this would have been her cue to stall for time with some clever Athena-like chit-chat. Except her voice wouldn't work. She couldn't even close her mouth. For all she knew, she was drooling as badly as Percy did when he slept. She was dimly aware of the army of monsters swirling around her, but after their initial roar of triumph, the horde had fallen silent. Annabeth and Percy should have been ripped to pieces by now. Instead, the monsters kept their distance, waiting for Tartarus to act. The god of the pit flexed his fingers, examining his own polished black talons. He had no expression, but he straightened his shoulders as if he were pleased.
"It is good to have form,"
he intoned.
"With these hands, I can eviscerate you."
His voice sounded like a backward recording, as if the words were being sucked into the vortex of his face rather than projected. In fact, everything seemed to be drawn toward the face of this god. The dim light, the poisonous clouds, the essence of the monsters, even Annabeth's own fragile life force. She looked around and realized that every object on this vast plain had grown a vaporous comet's tail, all pointing toward Tartarus. Annabeth knew she should say something, but her instincts told her to hide, to avoid anything that would draw the god's attention. Besides, what could she say? "You won't get away with this." That wasn't true. She and Percy had only survived this long because Tartarus was savoring his new form. He wanted the pleasure of physically ripping them to pieces. If Tartarus wished, Annabeth had no doubt he could devour her existence with a single thought, as easily as he'd vaporized Hyperion and Cryos. Would there be any rebirth from that? Annabeth didn't want to find out. Next to her, Percy did something she'd never seen him do. He dropped his sword. It just fell out of his hand and hit the ground with a thud. Death mist no longer shrouded his face, but he still had the complexion of a corpse. Tartarus hissed again, possibly laughing.
"Your fear smells wonderful,"
said the god.
"I see the appeal of having a physical body with so many senses. Perhaps my beloved Gaia is right, wishing to wake from her slumber."
He stretched out his massive purple hand and might have plucked up Percy like a weed, but Bob interrupted.
"Be gone!"
The Titan leveled his spear at the god.
"You have no right to meddle." "Meddle?"
Tartarus turned.
"I am the lord of all creatures of darkness, puny Iapetus. I can do as I please."
His black cyclone face spun faster. The howling sound was so horrible, Annabeth fell to her knees and clutched her ears. Bob stumbled, the wispy comet tail of his life force growing longer as it was sucked toward the face of the god. Bob roared in defiance. He charged and thrust his spear at Tartarus's chest. Before it could connect, Tartarus swatted Bob aside like he was a pesky insect. The Titan went sprawling.
"Why do you not disintegrate?"
Tartarus mused.
"You are nothing. You are even weaker than Cryos and Hyperion."
"I am Bob," said Bob. Tartarus hissed.
"What is that? What is Bob?"
"I choose to be more than Iapetus," said the Titan. "You do not control me. I am not like my brothers." The collar of his coveralls bulged. Small Bob leapt out. The kitten landed on the ground in front of his master, then arched his back and hissed at the Lord of the Abyss. As Annabeth watched, Small Bob began to grow, his form flickering until the little kitten had become a full-sized, translucent skeleton saber-toothed tiger. "Also," Bob announced, "I have a good cat." No longer Small Bob sprang at Tartarus, sinking his claws into Tartarus's thigh. The tiger scrambled up his leg, straight under the god's chain-like skirt. Tartarus stomped and howled, apparently no longer enamored with having a physical form. Meanwhile, Bob thrust his spear into the god's side, right below his breastplate. Tartarus roared. He swatted at Bob, but the Titan backed out of reach. Bob thrust out his fingers. His spear yanked itself free of the god's flesh and flew back to Bob's hand, which made Annabeth gulp in amazement. She'd never imagined a broom could have so many useful features. Small Bob dropped out of Tartarus's skirt. He ran to his master's side, his saber-toothed fangs dripping with golden ichor.
You will die first, Iapetus,
Tartarus decided.
Afterward, I will add your soul to my armor, where it will slowly dissolve over and over in eternal agony.
Tartarus pounded his fist against his breastplate. Milky faces swirled in the metal, silently screaming to get out. Bob turned toward Percy and Annabeth. The Titan grinned, which probably would not have been Annabeth's reaction to a threat of eternal agony.
Take the doors, Bob said. I will deal with Tartarus.
Tartarus threw back his head and bellowed, creating a vacuum so strong that the nearest flying demons were pulled into his vortex face and shredded.
Deal with me?
The god mocked.
You are only a Titan, a lesser child of Gaia. I will make you suffer for your arrogance. And as for your tiny mortal friends...
Tartarus swept his hand toward the monster enemy, beckoning them forward.
Destroy them!